Hey guys, what's up? It's Kurt here. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about what I think is one of the most exciting parts of the entrepreneurial process, and that is coming up with startup ideas. A lot of the advice I see online today about starting businesses is about how to do sales calls, how to build an MVP using no code, or how to grow your audience on social media. But all of that advice skips the very first step of starting a business. It all starts with your business idea. Before you can talk to customers, you need to know what group of people could become your customers and what you even want to talk to them about. Coming up with startup ideas is a creative process. There's no formula, but you can increase the quality and quantity of your ideas. In this video, I want to walk through the 7 tactics that I use to come up with startup ideas. If you haven't started your business yet and you're looking to generate more and better ideas, this is the video for you. Before diving in, there's one thing I wanted to say. Smash the like and subscribe buttons for the YouTube algorithm. Okay, that actually wasn't it, but that is very important as well. It helps me out, keeps me motivated to keep producing great content, and it helps other people to discover this content and start their own businesses. So seriously, please do that now. Okay, the thing that I actually wanted to say is that there are tons of businesses you can start that don't involve coming up with new startup ideas at all. Originality is overrated. If you're starting a trash hauling business, snow shoveling business, tutoring company, restaurant, sports coaching business, or any dozens of other businesses, especially those that are local in nature, you can be unique just by virtue of location alone. Even if you come up with a product or app idea that's novel for you, there's an extremely high chance that other companies have created similar products already and even gotten decent traction. In fact, it's often a bad sign if there's nothing else like your product on the market at all. Unless there's a definite reason you can identify why no similar companies exist, there's a strong chance that what that means is you haven't identified a real market need. All of the startups I've planned so far for this 12-month challenge have existing competitors in the market, some good and some bad. When I started my last startup, there was another competitor in the space that had raised tens of millions of dollars before we had even gotten started. We later learned from talking to customers that they were dropping the ball in significant ways for their clients and were churning customers. And their failure created an amazing opportunity for our business, but we wouldn't have been able to take advantage of that opportunity if we hadn't just gotten started. So when you see competition in the market, I want you to think of that as validation for your idea and something to get excited about instead of something to shy away from. Okay, so let's dive into the 7 tactics I've used to come up with startup ideas. Tactic 1, keep an idea journal. As I said earlier, coming up with business ideas is a creative process. Often the best ideas come to you when you're in the shower or taking a walk or just going about your life. And it can be really challenging to come up with startup ideas on some particular schedule. What works for me is commit to writing down 3 business ideas every single day. No judgment, these can be miserably bad ideas. They can be ideas that are blatant ripoffs of existing products, but maybe ones you'd be excited to work on. And it doesn't matter if these ideas aren't original when you start. Again, I don't think you need original ideas at all, but as you build this muscle of coming up with startup ideas, you'll start to get more original ideas. The most important point is just to practice that muscle and realize how many startup opportunities exist all around us in our everyday lives. The last time that I did this exercise, I wrote down about 50 ideas over the course of about a month. And of those 50, I think 10 of them were reasonable at all. And of that 10, there are about 4 or 5 that have ended up in this 12-month challenge that I'm now starting. I'll share a link to some of the more interesting ones in the description below. If these ideas resonate with you, if they make you think of other business ideas, or even if you'd be really excited to work on one of these business ideas, please write a comment to this video. Tactic 2, have a job or internship. It's much easier to observe problems firsthand than trying to come up with new ideas out of thin air. At a job or internship, as long as it's not an unpaid internship, the company is already paying for whatever it is you do at your job. If you can find some way to do your job faster or better or cheaper, then that is already a promising business idea right there. There's the risk that you're only solving this problem for yourself. And so it's still very important to talk to customers, people in similar roles at similar companies that might encounter the same problem. But this is absolutely an effective way for coming up with business ideas. If you identify a business idea this way, your employer can become one of your very first customers. And this is actually something that happens pretty frequently. Especially if you're starting a consulting business, your employer might be your best first client. You've already demonstrated trust in the relationship. You've demonstrated that you can accomplish the work. And so unless there's a strong reason why the function should be in-house, it's actually a much less risky proposition for the business to hire you as a consultant instead of trying to hire a different consultant or even hire a new person. Tactic 3, go talk to people in industries that interest you. This might sound like a really obvious tactic, but you probably have connections that you don't even realize you have. Find friends or family members that work in industries that interest you. There are probably tons of professional services that you, your family, or your friends use. Everything from yard work or construction to legal and accounting, and so many other professions. Even if you don't have that, you can still cold email people and chat with people at industry meetups. Businesses take a lot of work and passion to start. And so assuming they have the time, more often than not, business owners will be happy to share their passion with you. I'll give a shout out to another YouTuber who really inspires me, Graham Stephan, who every single weekend for months and months went to real estate open houses until he found an agent who was willing to take a chance on him and really taught him everything he knew about the industry and launched his career. To make these conversations productive, I think it's both valuable as well as respectful to come into the conversations having done your research. Let's say you're interested in residential construction. COVID has caused a ton of changes in that industry, everything from the rising cost of building materials to surging demand for housing and construction. Do your research ahead of time and go in with a curious mind. If you impress people in these conversations, they can be a great source of referrals to learn even more, and they could very well become your very first customers. Tactic 4, try new things and be on the cutting edge of trends. Whenever there's a new industry or massive shift in an industry taking place, there are almost always tons of opportunities that crop up around that development. There's a great story about the atheist Bible salesman who started the largest Spanish language Bible iOS app around 2012, despite not being particularly religious himself and not even being a native Spanish speaker. He saw the opportunity when the App Store was still very young and had very little competition because of that. He eventually grew the app to millions of users and ended up selling the business. If you're curious to read more about that story, I'll leave a link down in the description. There's also a saying that I think is phenomenal business advice. When there's a gold rush, sell shovels. If you see some new industry cropping up, think about who the prospectors in that industry are, and then try to think of businesses that might serve the needs of those people. You can carve out a niche extremely easily just because you'll have very little competition because the market is so new. Let's take a current example of this. So I'm not trying to start a flame war. Personally, I've always been a major skeptic of cryptocurrencies. They just haven't made any sense to me. However, NFTs is one of the first use cases that actually makes sense to me. If you haven't encountered the term before, the key idea with most cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin is that each token is fungible, which means it's more or less identical and can be used the same as any other token or any other Bitcoin in the market. An NFT is a non-fungible token, which means that each token is intentionally unique, and that uniqueness can be used to guarantee the authenticity of some kind of digital asset. Growing up, a lot of people were interested in collecting Pokemon cards, and before that, there were baseball cards, stamps, coins, and so many other collectibles that people are interested in. When you move into the digital world, there isn't the same concept of genuineness that exists in the physical world. Everything is just bits, ones and zeros. NFTs is a technology that allows you to prove that you have the authentic copy of some kind of digital asset or piece of artwork. If you're at the cutting edge of this trend of NFTs, you'll see that there are possible business opportunities for online display cases, being able to display digital art in the physical world, and marketplaces to buy and sell these kinds of assets. Many of these businesses have in fact already gotten started and gotten decent traction. Being at the cutting edge will show you these opportunities. Tactic 5. Pick an industry or target customer and write out in as much detail as you can everything about their day, what their hassles are, and what their goals are. The key idea is to write in detail, not at a high level. Doing this is actually a great way to measure how much you understand your target customer and even how much you can empathize with them. Especially when you're just learning about an industry, you could use a sequence of questions kind of like the following to gauge your understanding of the industry. What are industries that interest me? Who are people in those industries and what are their job titles, like on LinkedIn or their business cards? What is their day-to-day like? What are their goals? What are hassles that they encounter in their day-to-day? What are the tools that they currently use to reach their goals? Who are other people in their organization that they interface with? Who are their customers? There are so many different directions you can take these kind of questions. Again, the key idea with this tactic is drill in as much detail as possible. The more detail you have, the more complete picture you have of their pains, of their goals, and the better you're able to empathize with that person, and the more easily you'll be able to come up with startup ideas. Tactic 6, mash up the 12 forms of business value with a target customer or industry. So the 12 forms of business value is a list that comes from the book, The Personal MBA, which is a great book about entrepreneurship. I highly recommend it. I'll leave a link down in the description. And this list summarizes all of the business models that really exist in the world that all businesses fall into, and most businesses actually use a combination of items from this list. To quickly summarize the list, these are the 12 forms of business value. 1, creating a physical product. 2, offering a service, meaning you're doing typically one-off labor for each customer. 3, creating a shared resource and then charging for access to it. 4, offering a subscription, so offering a recurring benefit over time. 5, resale, so buying some kind of asset, typically at wholesale or some kind of auction, possibly doing some value add or marketing, and then reselling at a higher price. 6, leasing, so purchasing an asset and then renting for temporary access to that asset. 7, being a broker or a marketplace. So finding 2 third parties that want to transact and then facilitate that transaction, either charging a subscription fee or some kind of transaction fee. 8, audience aggregation. So find some way to capture the attention of the customers of your customer, bundle that attention together, and then you can sell that as a resource to your customer. 9, offering loans, so giving out capital that is then paid back over time at a premium. 10, offering an option, which is the right but not the obligation for your customer to do something in the future. Just so it's clear, this is not purely a financial instrument. Any kind of ticket for an event is the option for the customer to attend in the future. So movie tickets or sports events are the option to go to that event. 11, offering insurance, which means that you're transferring the risk of some negative event from happening to your customer, transferring that to your business in exchange for premiums that are paid by your customers over time. Lastly, 12, so offering capital in exchange for ownership stake in some kind of asset or the business itself. So this is actually a game you can play with your entrepreneurially minded friends. Pick a target customer or industry, pick one of the 12 forms of value, and then think through what does it look like to mash up those 2 ideas together. Going back and forth to come up with those ideas is actually something that my co-founder and I did back in college together for fun. If that's something that sounds like fun to you, congratulations, you're just as weird as I am, and there's also a good chance you're an entrepreneur at heart. Tactic 7, the last tactic I want to share with you today, is dig deep into research. You can learn a lot about almost any industry just by reading everything you can get your hands on. So read market research articles, academic articles, news articles, industry expose books, just everything you can get your hand on. You can become an expert a lot faster than you think just because most people aren't willing to put that time in. Having that expertise, having such a wide overview of an industry, while at the same time being able to look at an industry with fresh eyes, is a great way to identify startup ideas. My last company was in the debt collection industry. Before starting out, my co-founder and I knew nothing about the industry, but we just thought learning about it and all of the dysfunction that takes place was fascinating. After learning about it and seeing all the dysfunction, we saw the opportunity for how that industry could function in a new and better way. Most industries became entrenched in their habits decades ago, follow old assumptions, and most important of all, aren't able to attract the kind of talent that is willing or excited about trying new things. In our fast-moving world, sooner or later, that's a death sentence for any company. If you dig deep into the macro trends of whatever industry you're passionate about, there is a strong chance that that's going to lead to insight and a great new startup idea. Those are the tactics I recommend for coming up with new startup ideas. I've used these tactics successfully in the past and continue to do so, as have many other entrepreneurs. You can put these tactics into place today, and in due time, you'll have a number of promising startup ideas to work on. Lastly, I want to say you can spend tons of time working on startup ideas that go nowhere. Even running experiments about a market is something that takes time. It's well worth it to take the time to gather lots of ideas and then filter that down to the ones you think are most promising or the ones that you're most passionate about, instead of trying to run with the very first idea that pops into your head. If you want a benchmark for how many, I think setting aside about a month, coming up with 50 or so ideas and then filtering them down, like I was describing earlier in the video, is as good a benchmark as any. But at the same time, don't wait too long. Sometimes you need to just dive right in. That's the end. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. It really does